We are so happy to be here, and we actually think you guys are some of the luckiest people around, especially those of you who have come before. It's an enriching experience. It's something that is, you know, they say that a very good prophet of the future is the past. And with this experience, the past that we're reviewing is so important. So we're going to have a great insight to hard things and good things. And also, I think today, more than ever, is the experiences that our kids are involved with a flat surface world. They have technology in these things. We're going to go into a dimensional world. There's going to be dust, there's going to be stickers, there's going to be all these things. And it's good for us, and it's good for our kids, it's good for our youth to experience all the dimensions that is offered in a beautiful outdoor experience. It will be hard, but it will be very worthwhile.
It's a privilege to work with you guys. Absolute privilege. This is one of the greatest privileges of my life, being involved with another trek. For Julie and I, it's one of the most wonderful things we've ever done, and just look forward again to get to know each of you and look at your eyes as you are outstanding mas and pas to these kids, because a lot of the success of this trek is here. If you take this in your heart and you pray ahead of time and you think ahead of time, you prepare ahead of time for the experiences you'll have, ask Heavenly Father now, starting now, that you might have the Spirit of the Holy Ghost with you as you go, and you will see things happen. You will create wonderful opportunities for these young men and young women that they will take with them throughout their lives. And I'm so thankful for your willingness to serve in this calling, because it is an amazing experience. Thank you. This I just kind of a handwritten. I'm going to go through this whole thing as quick as I can. But I kept it out of the handbook so that you can maybe fold it and keep it as like a cheat sheet on the trail. Okay, rather than tear your handbook. And where's that page on handbook safety? This is just one little extra one that has the important points on it. So I want to just jump in and kind of talk about those things. And we should take about 15-20 minutes to do that. And we might have a little question and answer. Okay, when you get up to the site, we're going to have a lot going on. Please be organized. We have a lot to do in a short amount of time, and we really need to try and get out of there on time. So the building of the babies and those trail experiences and packing, which we'll go over in a minute, keep the kids at task, okay? That'll be a good opportunity for you to find out which kids aren't paying attention and which kids are. And you know, you'll see some of these boys, these big football players at Mountain View, they might not want to even be there. But as you're going down the trail the first day, it might be a little easy. Then all of a sudden we hit the hill, and you'll see some of those kids come alive. They'll say, now I've got a challenge. But you guys will have to kind of mas and pas, look at those different personalities and cue them in so you all work together. So try and stay on task and stay on time, because if we get out of there very late, it's just going to put us in that much later at the end of the day. As you get there, the hand carts are already be assembled. We've got a stake going in front of us, so they're already be put together, so we won't need to assemble them. But the first thing you can do when you get there and get ready to pack is actually have a couple of the boys lift each side and see if these wheels are fairly clear. They don't need to just spin, but just see if possibly one might be hanging up a little bit. If they do, there'll be one bolt. This has got a cotter pin, or there'll be a bolt, and that's what your little wrench and pliers are for, is to take that bolt out. We will provide a tube of grease for everyone, okay? There's going to be certain things you're going to get when you get up there with each hand cart, and I'll just quickly go over those tonight. So if those wheels are spinning free, leave them alone. If they're not, it'll only take you 2 minutes to pull a wheel. Take it off, grease that axle, a little rag or something, put it back on, put that pin back in carefully, okay? That's going to help you go down the road. But if they're spinning all right, don't bother. What you can do, though, is remember that first morning, after you get up and start that second day, check them again. And keep that grease handy and don't lose that, because that can, you know, after that first night, because they're already been used for 3 days when you get to them. So just check them. If they're working pretty good, get on them in camp that first morning, okay? So when you're loading, what you want to do, this is considered the yoke up here, okay? Normally you're going to have 2 kids inside the yoke position holding on to the rod and for the big iron rod in front. What you want to do is weight it a little bit down. So usually most people would put their water, it's called for 2 5s on the list. Some people have 10s, and 10 is all right, but you usually want to pack the 2 5s in the front, and that's going to get your weight down right there. And then just kind of equally pack all of your duffel bags and everything else. If you'll look at that list of what to kind of keep handy, you want to make sure that you have the water out. You'll be provided a couple of 4x4 stakes, and that is when there's a couple of real challenges, especially that first day on a real steep hill. And there'll be a couple of spots where maybe you feel like your kids are starting to wear thin, or there's a spot where that trail is going to level out a little bit. If you have to stop on a hill, Ma, I might suggest that you carry these 4x4s on the big hills. And there's only a couple of them. You're going to get to some mild hills, don't bother. But you know my riders will be there to prepare you for a big, steep hill. Pull your 4x4s out, Ma, and take them with you. Let those kids do the work. Only if they get down where it doesn't look like it's going to happen do you jump in. Let them do it. But have the 4x4s ready, because you might have 2 or 3 kids slip. All of a sudden, all that weight's on 7 kids. So have the 4x4s ready if you're on one of the steep hills. Okay, that's uphill. If you're going a downhill steep, we'll have a rider at the top of that hill. We'll ask you to turn the cart around, because then this becomes the back. You want nobody in front of that cart. Heaven forbid if they lost control, you want anybody in front of it. So you'll steer from reverse. The cart will be in front of you going down. You'll have 2 20-foot ropes, which will be to that day. One on this side looped around, one on that side. So when you're pulling on the flats or uphill, you're pulling, you can put 2 or 3 kids on each of those ropes, 2 in the yoke, and 2 can push from the corners back here. Please never let anybody push the wheels. We've had some gals hurt, never in our experience, but in some of the others, where they catch their long dress in the spokes of these wheels and it'll drag them down. So don't let anybody be pushed on the wheels. There's plenty of spots to push otherwise on other parts of the cart, okay? What you'll do is the 20x30 tarp, when you've got everything loaded, you make sure that the yoke wants to settle down like I said. You can take that tarp, put it over the top, and then the things that you're supposed to bring, if you'll look at that Ma and Pa list, and if I get going a little fast, just slow me down. You say, why a 20x30 tarp? In the experiences we've had over the years, there's one year where we desperately needed those 20x30 tarps. A 20x30 tarp does a really nice job. We had one year where we had about a 60-mile-an-hour wind move in with a rain and a dust storm. And with that 20x30, you put it to 30 feet this way over the cart, okay, 20 feet this way. So you've got almost 15 feet coming this way, 15 feet going that way. The stake will provide these stakes right here, okay? And what you can do is bring that tarp down and use those eyelets to put those stakes in at a steep angle on both sides. And you've got an instant tent for all your kids. Girls on one side, boys on the other. And they've been tested and they really do work. You can even, if you want, I suggest just leave the cart like that, it works fine. Some of the guys might have even turned them and tipped them on their side so that it doesn't roll. But if you do leave it like this, you can put some rocks under the wheels so it doesn't roll if you need to use those tents. We have only really needed them one time, but if you need them, you really need them.
This is the honkin' tarp that he's talking about. They're big, so they're hard to find. If people have been on track before, I encourage you to reach out to them if they have one of these. Like for our ward, one of you can take mine, because a lot of people don't, you're not going to use this tarp again, but you need to have the tarp. So it's helpful to reach out to people who did it before and see if you have a tarp you can borrow.
So any questions on that? Okay, so leave that. What you can do with that big tarp is put it into like quarters so it just fits over your gear nicely when it's all in. And then you take your little 50-foot rope that you see on that list and wrap that back and forth over that to keep everything. And you'll be, so most of them will be up about this high when you get done. If you don't do that and take that time and let as much as possible the youth pack, but supervise a little bit, I would suggest. Because otherwise you get stuff starting to fall out, and you're trying to make a hill and you got stuff falling all over. So I think there's going to be plenty of experience for them to go down the trail if you guys will kind of help be a little bit expeditious and a little bit organized in that packing. And then use that 50-foot to go back and forth to really get it all down nice. But you want to keep your shovel accessible off the edge of the tarp. You want to keep your 4x4s accessible. You want to keep your, you can wrap the tarp right around the water because you want to be able to take that, jug or each one of those 5-gallon jugs out and have water breaks, okay? And that's pretty much the things you need to kind of think about when you're going down on the trail. Okay, let's kind of look. Safety when pulling, we started going through some of that alone. There's no running, please. We've got some of these young men, they just want to run. And that really, we've seen some kids hurt kind of bad when they take off running. When they really want to run, it's hard to stop them on that last day when we're about a half mile from finishing. It's all we can do to stop them, but you want to try and be careful to not let them run. Just a nice, steady pace. We will probably have water breaks about every 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how warm it might be or cool. And please, this is very important. Watch your youth and make sure every one of them drinks. Because our biggest nightmare, we may have some sprained ankles and blisters and things, is heat stroke. And we have had a couple of kids that have to be flown out from heat stroke. And they weren't drinking. So please, I'd rather have them overdrink a little than underdrink, okay? So just watch and make sure everybody drinks.
Some way that our water is going to be refilled every night? Or,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
So.
When you get into camp, we're having 2,000-gallon called water buffaloes. They're big portable tanks. And that's what we have too, is if one's going to get water, we've always got one in camp. So yes, as soon as you get into camp, believe me, there's not a lot of opportunity to rest on this trek. When you get in, you've got to kind of think about all the things going on besides preparing to go to dinner and then maybe the dance. Fill your jugs up that evening. Then the next morning gets really critical because you got a fairly short window of time to get in line and get breakfast and have your little devotional, family prayer, whatever you have going on, get packed and get out in line. And but get early in the morning, start to go down and fill your jugs. I mean, not too early because you want them topped off pretty close to when we leave. But don't let that go too long. Otherwise, we all of a sudden have 30 miles and pies trying to get 15, 20 minutes before we need to hit the trail. So yeah, there'll be plenty of water in camp, both evenings. Anytime you're in camp, there's a lot of water. Yes?
This isn't about water, it's about the load. So why do we want the weight in the front instead of balance on the axle?
It's quite dangerous as you're going up a hill. If this always, it's really a lot easier for the kids. Now you don't want it really you'll find if you put the water in front and load everything else pretty evenly, that this will want to just tip down, but it's not that heavy. If you put the water in the back, these want to shoot up and that gets real dangerous, especially going uphill as those kids are trying to guide and steer that thing and it keeps wanting to go up. It's much easier for them to hold if it kind of wants to naturally go down a little bit. Does that make sense? Okay, and also it did say there on things to keep accessible, keep track of your hammer and your little wrenches and pliers. Because if something happens to one of the bolts. Now all my riders will have some extra cotter pins and bolts. We've had a few times where one of these comes undone and falls off. Now if you've got a cart that breaks down, like say if you break one weld, keep going. If you all of a sudden find that 2 or 3, like here's a broken one right here. This thing will go quite a ways when broke. If all of a sudden you have 2 or 3 broken, you see the things start to get a little rattle, pull your cart over the side of the road. We'll have a maintenance trailer at the back of the cart that will come within probably a couple 100 yards of the last carter, and you'll just have to wait till he can come up and get you repaired and get you going again. We'll just play it by ear as to what, can it be repaired fairly quickly, or do we need to put you on a truck and maybe get you to team up with someone else. There will also be company captains who can kind of help with some of those decisions. So company captains, of course, are bishops. And those guys always know what to do. We'll have a doctor with a truck and trailer in the back. If you get a child with maybe a sprained ankle, those happen, or really severe blisters. I remember, I've got so many stories I can't even get into them because I've seen so much wonderful thing. That's one of the blessings for being horseback. I get to see the whole thing. And I can just bawl my head off thinking about some of the stuff I've seen that these youth have done, because you see the spirit in some of these kids that they're going for some of their family people and their pioneers. And the things they do on trek just come out in their eyes. And I saw one poor little girl one time. She had blisters so bad, I could see the blood on the back of her Achilles. And I said, please, don't you want to get in the wagon and just ride? And she goes, no, sir, I do not want to ride. And she just went another whole day like that, just going. And she told me that evening about her great-great-great-grandma and what she had been through on trek. And so it's a wonderful experience. But anyway, there'll be a doctor and a trailer in back. If you do get a child injured, maybe company captain, you guys can best assess that. But if they need to pull out and wait for him, he'll be at the end of the trek too. And he can pick that child up and take him for the day and get him into camp that evening, and then you can reassess what needs to be done. If you get a child hurt or a mom and pop, I would suggest 3 or 4 weweeks out from this thing, you guys maybe, if you're already in great shape, great. If not, maybe do some evening walks with your better half, and because you're going to work yourself a little bit. So. And then wear great shoes, because as a little bit older people, kids' ankles are like, super rubber, but ours aren't. So boy, really good shoes are important. But if you get a child that looks like they're really down, get to a rider immediately, okay? We're going to have 8, 9, 10 riders, so we should have a rider for every 4 or 5 carts. They'll have radios. We can then decide at that point. Bishop will be there. There'll be consecrated oil you're supposed to have as part of your list. We get a blessing to that child or that adult. We decide if we're going to call an air evac, and we've got all those things. Heaven forbid. We only did have to do it one time in 6 treks that I've seen, but it can happen. So we'll be prepared for that if it happens. But most all the injuries are very minor. They generally will just go in the wagon and ride in for that day, and then you can just see what you need to do at the end of the day. In the mornings, prepare early again and hit the porta potties. Make sure your kids do. When you get out there on that trail, especially women, we are going to have some satellite toilets, and that's a traffic jam. But the girls love them. But I mean, if you really do need to go, and then that's what the shovels are for, and you just go out there as far as you need to go, and that is what it is. But but it helps a lot if you can just hit those porta potties before we pull out, because that satellite station is probably about 2 hours up the trail. So, okay. Any other questions? You guys are awesome.
How do you use the pulling rope?
The pulling rope, I'm glad you said that. Really, what it does is it'll have a loop over the end. They'll already be in position, but if they aren't, they'll have a little loop on one end. Okay, so they'll be just like that. And I made all these about 20 years ago. So you take it like this, if you can see. Yeah, so they're actually holding up real good. So that loop right there, you just take the end of it and put it through, just a little half hitch, you guys in the Scouts. So then she just pull it, and then that way your knots don't come undone, and just feed it all the way back down. Okay, did everybody kind of see that? I kind of did it fast. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Then that way it's going to stay, and all the rest of my rope is hung around there. Look at the trail boss, he can't even handle a rope. Come on, baby. Okay, and then so you've got that 20-foot rope, and really, literally, you can put about 3 kids, even 4 on each one of these. So, and that's a lot of pulling power. But you always need 2 in that yoke, because with 4 to 8 pulling out here, it really wants to bounce that front of that cart around if you don't have 2 in the yoke steering. Okay? Make sense? Any other questions? Yes.
So are the mom and pop machine pulling, are we like
We actually
participating in that,
usually
or?
suggest it's your group and you're in charge. We actually usually suggest for you not to. Most of this trek the kids can do, and the whole idea is not to provide not only to provide spiritual experiences, but to really test them. A lot of these kids today, they don't have a lot of hard things happen sometimes, especially in our areas up here, and so it really is a good physical test for them too. So it's, if you need to jump in because you get to that point where, and really I can only see it happening really on a real steep hill. Now there's going to be one hill, and we'll explain this when we get to that hill, one major test. I won't get into it very much, where you're going to get to pull 2 carts. So what you do is you'll take your cart up and come down and get another cart, because what we're going to do is put 2 teams, 2 Ma's and Pa's, 20 kids on each cart, because it's a challenge hill. It's our Rocky Ridge, and it's some of the most amazing things happen. Last time, the last cart going, they put one of the bishops on. They had a bunch of the Mountain View football players, and they were so psyched. They put the bishop on top, and they hiked him up this hill. And he was just screaming all the way up.
I also wanted to mention, being a Ma 4 years ago, one of the most important things for you to bring and to make sure, maybe it's announced often in your word, is your work gloves, especially for those youth. Otherwise, they're going to get really bad blisters on their hands. So it says in there to bring extra gloves. It's to save their hands from the ropes and from pushing and pulling. It's really, really important to have those.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, they make packs like 5 at Home Depot now for $5. Just throw up 1 or 2 of those in so you have an extra. It said right there on the list, about an extra 5 pair. Kids are supposed to bring their own, but they will need those gloves all 3 days. Yes.
Well, for those who've gone before, what's your best advice on shoes? I noticed Carrie had track shoes on. I don't know if were leather hiking boots. I mean, what do the repeaters recommend?
Okay, I did. I wore exactly what I would wear on track. These are running shoes that I've had for a year and a half. My feet have completely broken into them. They're a little dirty. I don't mind that they're going to get nasty and gross on the track. So if you have nice shoes, I would not bring them. But you need to wear shoes that your feet are used to, and used to being walking or running or hiking, something that your feet are used to doing miles on, because that's really critical. Then you should be fine.
And that's where maybe you get out that 2 or 3 weeks before and try and do a few evening walks, or evening, just walks in the evening. Get those shoes and make sure they're really comfortable and broken in. A lot of the women will wear those hiking shoes like that. Looks awesome, all Pioneer clothes and then some Nikes. Anyways, just comfortable, good shoes. Hiking boots work good too, but a lot of people really will wear that type of shoe right there, and that's great. Otherwise, let's go as authentic as we can. The authenticity lends a lot to the trek. To have these kids get mentally and physically back in time as much as you guys can. It can be corduroys. It can be just kind of an old-looking, Western shirt, suspenders. You don't have to go out and buy a lot. but we want to try and keep it as authentic as we can, and that's why our horses and all that. So, we saw another hand. Yes.
Well, can I just mention a little
Yes.
more on that? So Pat's got the scarf. He looks like $1 million. He's got these great pants. So you can totally do different options. This shirt came from Goodwill. I cut the collar, so I get a straight collar like this. Okay, and then simple suspenders, regular khakis, and shoes. So and then a hat. And so you can make it. I think still look pretty good, not like him.
See, two pioneer guys.
So, but just use the website. The website is terrific. It's got information there on clothing. There's information there where you can go to buy clothing online if you want to get really authentic stuff from a couple different resources. There's also advice on how to make a bonnet, make a dress. Just remember, your clothing will get ruined. This grease, there's no way. You can try to stay away from the grease. I guarantee you're going to get grease on your stuff. So whether it's your dress, whether it's, and if Anna were here, she would say, please, please, please make sure young women have an apron. You're going to want, the girls are going to want the ability to have a pocket. And a lot of dresses aren't going to have that, so you're going to need that. I know the young women, last time, a lot of the young women took a night to do bonnets. Kensington Ward just recently did bonnets for an activity. So that can really help the youth from that side in terms of clothing.
A lot of the moms and pa's will take that 20 by 30 tarp too and spread it for their campsite, and you can literally sleep. If the weather looks like it's going to be good for sure, you can spread that out and put everybody on top and stay out of that dirt. A lot of them will do that. One other thing too, when we come in at the end, please, if you guys could pull those pins and pull the wheels, okay, and set the wheels in the cart, kind of just to disassemble the carts for us. And we'll be down there, our horseback guys, and kind of lend a little instruction on that, but we want to try. And otherwise, we've got a crew of about 6 guys that's got to take them all apart. Should only take you, about 5-10 minutes to go and have the boys hold up the cart while you pull the pins and slide the wheels off and just set them on the box, okay, and then put the pin back in the wheel and reconnect it so the pin and collar are back on the axle.
Hat. Whether it's kind of a straw cowboy hat or a bonnet, really, truly, you need to wear your hat. And the one thing that you can wear besides, athletic Nike shoes is you can bring sunglasses because it gets pretty bright out there. So I would hats are super important, but no baseball hats. It's got to be authentic. We're trying to keep it authentic for the kids. So straw hats or bonnets for the girls and cowboy hats, straw hats for the boys, but very important.
Something like this.
And sunglasses.